So, in the first lecture, we have discussed the nature and scope of social movements. And today, we are going to discuss about the different types of social movements. Uh, so, I hope whatever we have discussed in the previous classes are clear to you. And generally, social movements occur when a large group of individuals or organization work for or against change in social and political matters. So that is the a generalized perception about a generalized definition of what a social movement is. Today, as part of the lecture today, we need to discuss some certain key points, like especially when the cultural the reference of cultural anthropologist named David F. Berley. He has identified four kinds of social movements, which are, number one, alternative social movements, number two, redemptive social movements, and third, reformative social movements, and fourth, the revolutionary type social movement. So his ideas are, or his differentiations on social movements are based on two major questions, which are, the first question is who is the movement attempting to change, and number two, how much change is being advocated. These are the two questions he you know mm, outlined when he discussed about the four kinds of social movements. So, according to David F. Eberle, alternative social movements are at the individual level and advocate for minor social change, and at the same time, redemptive social movements are at the individual level and advocate for radical changes. That means alternative movements are, basically focusing on the individual level analysis, and they advocate for minor social change. Uh, at the same time, redemptive social movements are at the individual level and advocate for radical changes. One is advocating minor changes, and another one is advocating radical changes. And the same way, reformative social movements occur at a broader group of societal level and advocate for minor changes. Revolutionary movements occur at a broader group or societal level and advocate for radical changes. I repeat, reformative movements at a broader group of societal level and advocate for minor changes. Revolutionary social movements occur at a broader group or a societal level and advocate for radical changes. Other ways to categorize social movements include its scope. Other ways to categorize social movement include its scope, especially when reform or radical or type of social change, especially in terms of innovative or conservative, and finally the target. That means the target group focused or a group focused target or a individual focused target, and also the method we adopt to for social change or bringing social change through social movement is also very important. Generally, we focus on two types of methods. One is the violent method, and the other one is the non-violent method. And the range of the movement. Range means the broader spectrum, whether the movement has focusing on the local level analysis or a local level phenomenon or a global level phenomenon. So all these key points are very important when we discuss the different types of social movements. And revolutionary social movements occur at a broader group or a societal level and advocate for radical change. That we all know, revolutionary social movements occur at a broader group or a societal level and advocate for radical changes. Other ways to categorize social movements include classifying by scope, type of change, target, methods, and range. So it needs to be all these things. The scope, type of change, targets, methods, range. All these things are very high, very important when we discuss the types of social movements. So we have discussed some certain key points, which are entry points to understand social movements and the type of social movements. Now we need to discuss some certain key terms which are very relevant, which are highly relevant for an analysis of the various types of social movements. First is the revolutionary social movements. Revolutionary social movement is a specific type of social movement dedicated to carry out revolutionary reforms and gain some control of the state. If they do not aim for an exclusive control, they are not revolutionary. At the same time, a reformative social movement advocates for a changes, for minor changes instead of radical changes. For example, revolutionary movements can scale down their demands and agree to share points and powers with others, especially to become a political party. So, redemptive social movement, when we follow the same method, redemptive social movements are, a movement is highly radical in nature, radical in scope, but focused on individuals. So these key terms are also very important in our discussion of the various types of social movements. Social movements are a specific type of group action in which a large number of informal groups of individuals or organizations work for or against change in a specific political or social spectrum. So we need to know. We have begun our discussion by the by using a reference called David Eberle. He's a cultural anthropologist, and he describes four types of social movement based upon two fundamental questions: who is the movement attempting to change? Number two, how much change is being advocated? Social movements can be aimed at change on an individual level. For example, we have most of us are familiar with the operation of a universally proclaimed organization called Alcoholics Anonymous, which is a support group for recovering alcoholics, or change on broader group or even societal level. And anti-globalization movements, social movements can also advocate for minor changes such as tougher restrictions on drunk driving, or radical changes like prohibition. I'll share with you, certain readings which are highly relevant for understanding Abale's four types of social movements. And he's focusing on, he has two parameters. One is radical and the limited analysis, and the spectrum, types, and scope, methods. All these things are very important while we discuss about the nature and types of the types of social movements. So other categories have been used to distinguish between types of social movements. One is, of course, we have pointed out in the first part of this lecture, that is the scope. A movement can be either reform or radical. A movement advocates changing some norms or laws, while a radical movement is dedicated to changing value system in some fundamental way. A reform movement might be a trade union seeking to increase workers' rights, while we have seen in American Civil War rights movement was a radical movement. Then the type of change, a movement might seek change that is either innovative or conservative. An innovative movement wants to introduce or change norms and values, while conservative movement seeks to preserve existing norms and values. And third one is the target. A group focused movement focuses on influencing groups or or society in general. For example, attempting to change the political system for a monarchy or to democracy. An individual focused movement seeks to affect the behavior of individual and their organization. And methods of work. Peaceful movements utilize techniques such as non-violent resistance and civil disobedience that we have seen in the first Indian independence movement led by Mahatma Gandhi. Violent movements resort to violence when seeking social change. Naxalbari movement the Naxalite movement is the best example of violent movements. They resort to violence when seeking social change. On the other hand, non-violent movements like the Gandhi-led national movement in India, it's a classical example of non-violent movement. So both the examples are both Naxalbari and Indian independence movement. Both are from India. One is advocating non-violent method, and the other one is advocating violent method. Both are addressing the same society with a different, vision of social change and social organization. And finally, we need to discuss about the range. Global movements such as communism in the early 20th century have transitional objectives. Local movements are focused on local or regional objectives such as preserving a historic building or protecting a natural habitat. So these are the major issues that we need to discuss, that we need to know when we learn about the types of the types of social movements. So for this matter, there are hundreds of definitions, and hundreds of anthropologists and sociologists have studied about social movements. Here we have only in this class we have only focused on one particular person. He's a cultural anthropologist. His name is David F. Aberle, and today's lecture was completely based on his notions and his ideas of social movements. So it doesn't mean that other definitions are irrelevant for us. They're also they're very much important. They all are very highly useful for our course. So today I wanted you to focus on this particular person only, and tomorrow and in the coming lectures we need to we'll move forward, or we will discuss the uh, the alternative perspectives of other social anthropologists and sociologists, and this will be for your this I think we can stop discussing. We'll have a discussion in the next class, and you need to read the text of David F. Aberley for today's class exercise. Thank you. 100 minutes.